For this demo, we're going to be creating a WebXR application with Blender, Godot, and GitHub, in which you can pick objects up and throw them at other objects. In this case, we'll be making this very simple kind of knock them down type game. To begin, you should download the Godot XR start main file linked in this video. Create an empty folder, preferably in your documents or wherever you want to keep it, called Godot. You will then unzip the downloaded file. If you've downloaded this through Safari or some browsers, unzip it automatically, so you just have a folder. And then you want to make sure that you drag this entire folder into your new folder. Now that we've done that, we'll just simply rename this folder to be throwing project and your name. We can see the contents here. After you download the linked file, which we can see right here, you'll want to create a folder called Godot. You can keep that anywhere you want, and we'll create a folder within there. So we'll create a new folder. Sorry, my laundry's running in the background. We'll create a new folder called throw demo and your name. We will take this zip file and we'll open the contents of the file and be sure to just highlight everything and drag it all into there. Here. The next step, we're going to make a simple model in Blender. So to do this, we'll have our basic scene. We'll get rid of our camera and light. We just want the basic cube to start with. And we'll start by just putting this basic cube at floor level. So we'll press G for grab, Z for Z-axis, hold down the control key so it snaps to the floor. That looks good. And now we will press S and X to scale it so it's a bit longer. And we'll press Shift D. So we have a second one, and just press Y so we can drag that out to about here. Looks fine. All right. So now that we've done that, we will go ahead and put some objects on these benches. So I will press Shift A and I will add an icosphere. And here in the Add Icosphere section, I'm going to lower the subdivision. So it's really simple. I'm going to press G for grab, Z for Z-axis. I'm just going to put it right there so that it's just floating right there. Now I'll shrink it down a little bit. I think that that looks pretty good. I just kind of want to make sure it's not too big compared to this table surface. I think that that's fine. Now I'm going to press Shift D and hit the X key so it just moves on X, because once you duplicate something, it's already in motion, so you don't have to press G for grab. And I'll put a second one here, and then I'll press Shift D again, hit X, and put a second one there. Okay, looking pretty good. Now I'm going to click on the second table, and I'm going to search with spacebar or F3 and type cursor to, and I'm going to choose this option, cursor to selected, so the 3D cursor is here. Now I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add another mesh to the scene. This time, I think I will add a simple cylinder. I'll press G for grab, Z for Z-axis, lift this up. Notice that I'm lifting it higher than the table. And actually, sorry to backtrack this, but it actually occurs to me that we might want to just reproduce these in Godot. So I'm going to click on these two spheres here and just delete them. So we just have one and one. That'll be fine. So for this one, I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to press Control or Command R for loop cut. Hover over the cylinder, scroll up to get two cuts, click. You can see that they're loose. I can right click to put it in the middle or hit escape, or in this case, I'll actually purposefully make it a little asymmetrical. That's great. I'll hit 3, so I'm in face selection mode. Now, if I've lost this selection, I can hold down the Alt or Option key and click there in face select mode and get a loop select. And now I'll just press S for scale and just kind of scale that in a little bit so we kind of have this hourglass shaped thing, just so we have somewhat original shape. All right, so our scene is almost, this very simple scene is actually almost done. Let's add a little animation to this. So I'm just dragging up the timeline a little bit so I can see it. And now I'm going to go to the output properties. Now, if you don't do this step, it's not such a big deal, but most interactive things run at 30 or 60 frames a second, so we're going to switch the frame rate here from 24 to 30 frames a second. And then here for the start and end frames on the timeline, where you can also see the same numbers here, I'm going to make it 1 to 90. So now on this sphere object, I'm going to press the letter, I'm going to point to this icosphere and press the letter K, and I'm going to put a keyframe for rotation. I'm going to skip to the end. So the last frame on my animation, I'm going to here for this object, just going to kind of hold it at just going to kind of look at it from kind of an interesting angle. I don't want it to be quite straight down, but kind of down-ish. I'm going to press R, and I'm going to press 360 for 360, enter or return. And then I'm going to press K again and rotation. And now when we hit play, we can see that this thing is rotating, but you notice it's kind of rotating, but sort of slowing down as it goes. If yours doesn't do this, it means your defaults are set differently, and you can just be happy that it's not doing this. If it is, what we want to do is we go to the timeline here and we press A so that both these keyframes are selected. I'm going to press T for time. I'm going to just choose linear time, and now this will just keep spinning. Great. So we're almost ready to export this. We're going to put a modifier on it and some material. So I'm going to select both these benches here. That's what they're going to be, is benches. I'm going to go to modifiers, I'm going to add a modifier, search, type bevel. I'm going to bevel the amount in a little bit. And I'm also going to set the segments to 2. And while I have them both selected, I'm going to press Control or Command L. And I'm going to choose the option here, copy modifiers. So they both look the same now. Now you might notice that these objects, they look kind of weird, like they're more beveled on the edges than the ends. And that's because we resized them in object mode. So to fix that problem, we're going to press Command or Control A, and we're going to go to Apply Scale, and then you see that the beveling is normal. We can also click on, or we can press A to select everything in our scene, right click and choose the option Shade Auto Smooth, and now we kind of have these smoothed out edges on our structures. I want to make this hourglass thing kind of skinnier, so I'm going to press S for scale, Shift Z, scale it down like that so it kind of looks like a little lava lamp. Maybe do a little more. And now I'll press Control A and apply scale. All right, so notice that these things are floating above the table. I think I'll also make this one a little smaller, apply scale, and that looks pretty good. So now we will press the letter Z and switch to material preview. And we're going to give these things some basic materials. So here we'll click on the material tab, and I'll press, we already have one default material here. If not, you can press plus right there. I'm going to set it to metallic. I'm going to set it to be kind of purpley blue. Great. And now I'm going to select the little rotating sphere here. I'm going to create a new material there. I'm going to set that one to be kind of red and also make that metallic. Why not? And then I'll select this cone thing, shift select the red thing. So that's got the brighter selection. So first select the one without a material, then select the one with a material with shift, and now I'll press Control L, sorry, or Command L, and I will link materials. So now they have the same material. And we're almost ready. We just need to see what our dimensions are. So I'll click on one of these objects here. I'll press the letter N, and I can see that on the Z axis, this is 2 meters tall, which is very large. So we want to resize this whole scene, but we want to make sure, if I just were to press A and scale this, you can see it kind of floats into space. I want to keep it on floor level. So to do this, I'm going to press Shift and C, and that resets my cursor to the basic position. We can also, if we don't want to do it with a key command, we can type cursor to world origin, same thing. Now that I've done that, I'm going to press the period key on the keyboard, which gives me different pivot points. And I'm going to choose 3D cursor as my pivot. So now we're going to do this one more time. I'm going to click one of these bench things, and then I'm going to press A. And notice, even though everything's selected, my dimensions here are for the active selection. So I can see that my bench is 2 meters tall. I want it to be half, so I can now just press S and scale it down manually. And you can see everything scales down to the cursor, which is great. Or because I'm scaling it to half the size, I could just press the period key and 5, and we scale it to half the size. I can press Command or Control A, apply scale, just to make sure it's all applied. You can see that changes the beveling a little bit. And our scene is now ready to export so we can work with it in Godot. So to do that, we're going to go to File, Export, GLTF, similar to what we've done in the past. Now see, everything is still selected here. So for include, we're going to do include selected objects. Now, in case we have modifiers that aren't applied, like that bevel modifier, we're going to go to Data, Mesh, we're going to choose this option, Apply Modifiers. We're then going to go down to Animation, and here where it says where it says Animation Mode, we're going to choose Active Actions Merged. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, our merged animations are called animation, and that's great, but we're going to actually add dash loop to that name so that that little rotating thing rotates forever. And now we just need to export it to the right place. So I'm going to go to my Godot folder that I've created. I'm going to go to Throwing Project, and we'll just drop it right in the main section of the project. And we're going to give it the name models.glb and hit export. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to this folder, and you can see our models are right here. And now we're going to click on that Godot project and open that up. And here we have our sample scene in Godot. So on Macs, you can usually just double click on Project Godot and it'll open up in Godot. If you're on Windows, you open up Godot and you get this projects page. We're going to click Import. And now we're going to navigate to that folder. So I can see I have it in this drive. Godot, Godot, whatever you want to call it. Throw demo, project, open. And here I click on import and edit. And here we have our sample scene in Godot. And you can see, if we scroll down here, we can see our models are right there. All right, so we want to change this scene up a little bit, but not too much. So we've got a lot of basic components here that are already working pretty well. We've got a world boundary set up on the floor. We can just leave our floor as is, in fact. We've got a sunlight. You know, we might want to have different lighting in the future, but for this exercise, we'll leave that. This sub viewport node would be better named as a mirror. We'll leave that in place too. The only thing I want to look for in here is you'll see we have this thing called sample pickable. Expand that a little bit. So you can see it says sample pickable rigid body with cube collider, and that's this object here. And we don't need that in our scene. So we will click on that and we'll right click and choose the option delete. Or if you're on a Windows computer, you can hit the actual delete key. And if you're on a Mac, you hold down the command key and the delete key. Okay, so that object is gone. Now I'm going to select in this section here, I'm going to select player XR node 3D, and just using the gizmos, we don't need to use key commands. I'm going to click on that blue arrow, and actually I'm going to leave the player in place because I'm not sure why they're dragging together. All right, so now I'll take our file called models, and I'll just carefully drag that up from our files here to where it says the main node, and let go. And there you can see it's dropped our models into the main node. The only issue is that they're kind of dropped right on top of where we're standing. So we'll go in front of that a little bit, and that should be good. We can also go ahead and take the whole contents of this sub viewport, click on the move gizmo, just click the camera and the mesh, and drag those back too, so that the mirror is further away from us. Great. Take our models, tweak the position on that a little bit too, and I think that that looks pretty good. And it looks like they are a little bit above the floor. I think my floor must be a little low, but that's okay. We'll just lower them down until they can even go into the floor a little bit. That's okay. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. The next thing we want to do is going to get, this is where it actually gets a little more complicated. Here where it says models, we're going to right click on that or click with 2 fingers, and we're going to choose the option make local. And you can see now, we can see all the specific models in there. We're going to click on the animation player. Actually, we don't need to worry about that just yet. So we've got those local. That's great. And now we want to edit these a little bit. So we are going to go to scene. We're going to create a new inherited scene. And we're going to inherit it. We're going to go into add-ons, assets. So we're going to go to add-ons, XR tools, objects, and we're going to find this one called pickable scene. And then we'll click open. All right. So now you can see our scene has a collision shape, which is empty, and a pickable object. Great. So we're going to go ahead and go back to our main scene. We have these tabs here, and we're going to click on our cylinder, and we're going to press either Command or Control X, or we can right click it and choose this option to cut. You can see it's disappeared from the scene. So now we will go to our unsaved scene and we'll just click in this space here and you can click on this and hit paste. And now our cylinder has been pasted into this scene. However, as you can see, it's kind of in a weird location. So to fix that, we're going to click on this and we are going to look at this inspector here. And here's this option transform. And you can see that the XY positions all have number values on them, but there's this little undo. So we'll click that. And now our object is right back in the middle. Perfect. So in order for this to be something we can actually grab and hit, we need to add a collision to it. So we're going to click here on collision shape 3D. And for the shape, we're going to drag down. We're going to choose a cylinder shape. And you can see we have this cylinder floating around our object. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that top dot and drag it down to the top of the object. And I might even allow that cylinder to be a tiny bit smaller so that the object definitely sits on the table and doesn't have a gap. And then for this side, we'll drag inward. You just want to kind of get a nice, whoops, remove the whole thing. So I just press Control C for undo. So we'll just get that nice and fitted. There we go. We've got our collider fitted. We've got our cylinder in there. Here where it says pickable object, let's rename this. So we just double click on pickable object and we type cylinder. And now this is important. We want to be careful. We want to go to scene and save scene as. We don't want to save the scene because then we can replace our whole thing. So we'll do save scene as. And now here next to the path, we want to click this little up arrow. Whoops, went up too far. Oh no, we didn't. Just to get up all the way up to the main folder. So you should get all the way up. So you just see add-ons, GV assets, textures, main scene. We've called it cylinder and now we hit save. Great. So now we're going to make our throwing object. So we're going to go ahead and select the cylinder here and press delete key on Windows or Command delete on a Mac. We'll delete that cylinder. And our collision shape, here where it says shape, we're going to reset it. So there's no collision shape there anymore. We're kind of back to where we started. We're going to double click on cylinder and call it throwing object. Great. Now we go back to our main scene and we select our icosphere. Very good. Right click, cut. You can also do Control X or Command X for that. We'll go back to our scene that's still called cylinder and we will press right click down here and we will press paste. And that icosphere, it's in here, it's somewhere. There it is, it's just high up. So now for this icosphere, same thing, we find in the inspector transform. We reset the values, so it's right in the middle. Very good. And we need to give it a collision. So here, you can see we have lots of options for collision shapes. You would think a sphere collider would be the best for this, or something that conforms it perfectly. The problem with that is that in VR, it's going to roll off the table too easily. So I'm going to go with this box shape, 3D. There it is. And now I can kind of tweak each side on its own. Yeah, do that. Or, let's see. By the way, it seems if you do something wrong in Godot, even on a Mac, you want to press Control Z, not Command Z as your undo. So to scale this whole cube uniformly, I'm going to go up here to these tools. I've got the move tool, the rotate tool, and the scale tool. And we just kind of click anywhere on this object except the specific nodes. We'll scale that whole cube in. So we get kind of like a nice fit on this object. Now, this will work already, but we kind of want to add a little more to it. So before we do that, though, I'm going to go to scene, save scene as. So we don't want to replace our cylinder with this, and we'll rename it throwing object, save. Now, it's important that you not only rename your scene, but that you also rename that master node at the top like we did earlier. Otherwise, when you drag it into your main scene, it won't be clear what it is. So now in the main scene, you can see here in our models, we have the cubes, but we also have this thing called an animation player. We're going to click on that. We're going to cut that too. And then we'll go back to our throwing object and we'll paste that right on in here. And we're going to test this animation player by pressing play. You can see it makes the cylinder turn and it loops because we typed in loop in Blender. The only problem is it doesn't actually start automatically when you open the scene. There's nothing to trigger it yet, but we can circumvent that by simply clicking this little button next to the animation here. If I highlight it for a second, you can see it says autoplay on load. So we'll click that in so that's on. And now this throwing object will be automatically rotating. So just to be safe, because I don't want to replace any scenes, I'm going to hit save as and make sure we save it as throwing object scene. and we will allow it to replace. Oh, we can't overwrite a scene that's still open. That's okay. We can just make sure it says throwing object and not cylinder. Just go to scene, save scene. All right, and now we can actually just close that tab. All right, so the next thing we want to do is set these objects up so that our objects can actually sit on them, these bench things. It can just be called cubes, it's fine. So we can leave this node that says models here, and we'll click on that actually, and we're going to press Command or Control A, and we can add all sorts of things here, and we're going to type static, and here's a static body 3D. Double click. So there you see it just says static body 3D. I'm going to select one of our cube structures. I'm going to hold down Shift and select the other one and drag them both in there. So they're both part of this static body. But as you can see, it still doesn't have a collider. It's giving us this warning. But we're going to actually generate colliders based on these objects, which we don't have to do because they're pretty simple objects, but it's just good to learn. So I'm going to click. We'll see if we can do it on both at the same time. So I click on one cube, shift clicked on the second one, and then I click mesh. And here we have create collision shape, and we'll go with try mesh, sibling, just default settings. And now we can see it has created this collision shape that kind of wraps around that. Now you can see we have our mesh, we have our collision, our mesh, and our collision. Now if I hide the mesh, it's a little hard to see because the lines are faint. You kind of see that collision shape is there. So now to clean this up a little bit, here where it says static body 3D, we'll click that little arrow to just kind of collapse that into one section. And now in our main section here, in our assets down here, you can see we've got our cylinder and we have our throwing object. So we'll take our cylinder scene and we'll drag that over here to main. And there it is. And now on these tools here, we're going to click the move tool. Now it's important that we don't resize this object. So we'll click that and we'll hover it over the bench here. Very good. And now we want more of them. So similar key command to Blender, not exactly the same. In Blender, it's Shift D. Here it is Control or Command D. We have a second one. We'll slide that to the side. I'll do it again, Command D. I have another one, D, and another. Why not? I'll select the first one here again, Command D, Command D. So Command D for duplicate. So we've got a bunch of these cylinders here. Very good. Now we'll go for throwing object, and we'll drag that all the way up to main. There's our throwing object, and we'll move that forward, move that up. And we're going to rely on physics to place these things on the tables, on just, gravity and collision. So we just want to make sure they don't intersect with each other, because that kind of screws it up. So if the cube there intersects the table, it's going to kind of freak out. But if it's floating above, it'll just fall on there when we start. So now we'll take that and we'll scroll that out to the side, or slide it out to the side. I don't know why I said scroll, sorry. Just slide that out to the side. And now we'll press D, Command D, D, or Control D, of course, D. You can see I'm just duplicating these and shifting them. So now we've got these things that we can throw with these cylinders. Maybe just for fun, we can see if we can, we'll just leave it like this. Or actually, that might be cool. So I'll click on the middle cylinder here, Command D, and try to stack one on top as well. So now we can press Command S or Control S to save our whole scene. And to test our scene, because we have the XR simulator set up, we'll just hit play right here. And we can see that those objects fell right away. The only thing is, for some reason, the second set of objects just fell on the floor. So we should fix that. Let's just make sure this works. I'll hold down E to control that hand, right click, picking it up, letting go, picking it up, letting go, give that one a toss. We won't really be able to toss these well unless we're actually in VR. So that's looking pretty good. So I'll press escape, and then I'll drag up here, and I'll hit stop. Now, we do have this problem here that one of these benches seems to be working properly, but not the other one. So let's see what we can do about that. We'll go here where it says static body, and it looks like I accidentally moved one of my collision shapes, so it's not corresponding to that table. I'm not really sure how I did that, so I'm just going to drag that collision shape over here and line it up with the table. And now we'll hit play and see if that works. Yes. So you can see our cylinders are all stacked up on the table in front of us, and our rotating objects to throw at them are all in front of us. So this scene is complete. So I'll press escape, press stop. Now we will save our scene. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to export this for the web. So to do that, we're going to click on project, we're going to go to scene, export as, scratch that. We're going to go to project, like I said, export. And here we're going to add an export setting, and we're going to choose HTML5. But here's where it says web. We're going to click on that. We're going to type X and R. And now we're going to hit this export project. And here we are. We're going to press up so that we're in our Godot folder. Okay. And we're going to want to create a new folder in there. We can click on that here. There's this option, create new folder. We're going to call it throw web. Okay. So we're in Godot, throw web. And we want to change the name of this to index. And very important, we want to turn off this debugging setting, and then we'll hit save. And it should export rather quickly. Great. So now we can hit close, and we're done with Godot. I'm not going to quit it though. So the next thing we want to do is use our GitHub app. And we're going to add a new repository. So create a new repository. We'll call it Godot throw, do undercase, Godot throw, and your name, and we'll hit create repository. Now we'll click show in Finder, and here it is within our GitHub, empty. Now we can go to throwing object, and here is our throw web. Oh, the web, you get it. And we'll take all the contents from that folder. Let's check the size of this real quick. Be good. So we'll take all the contents from inside that folder, and we will drag them into Godot throw. Now you can see there's a few things in here, like there's this thing called like index icon PNG or index PNG, which are various like game engine loading screens. If you want to open those images in an image editor and change them to something customized to you, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. It's not like, Godot's free, so there's no requirement to keep their branding on it in any way. But we're not going to go over that right now because it's just an extra step. So now that we have that, we have our commits. So we'll just write some sort of note here, commit the files, publish repository. We're going to uncheck keep this code private, publish repository. Now we'll click view on GitHub. And similar to what we did in the past, we've got our repository here. We've got this .pck file, which has like most of the goodies in there, and then index.html, which is what starts it. We're going to go to settings, pages. Here we'll click for branch, we'll select main. For deploy, we'll click GitHub Actions. Never click on Jekyll for this. We'll click on static HTML, configure, creates this file for us, commit change, and we're done. We'll reload this again. And sometimes you just have to come back to it a minute later. So sometimes if the web address doesn't show up right away, you have to reload it a few times. But there we go. Here, we've got the page, and we can click on that. And unlike A-Frame, we don't get a version of this that runs in the web browser. We have to actually access this on a VR headset to support it, but we can see that the scene is at least functioning, and we can see that the physics works and everything. So this is far enough to then test it in class or on your own with a VR headset, of course.